Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Mickey from MRDC Software, and I have with me Phil Hearn. We will discuss the 10 reasons for using the QPSMR Companion. Now, if you have any question, you can type that in the Q&A box, and we will answer that after the presentation. So I will hand it over, Phil. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. And as I always seem to say when I start these webinars, good morning to everybody if you're in my side of the world, or good afternoon if you're on the other side of the world there. I hope you're all managing well in these difficult times. Today's webinar, we're going to be looking at the new QPSMR Companion. I say new, and I'll qualify that a little bit more in a minute. And I'm going to take you through 10 of the new features that are in the QPSMR Companion. So this webinar is really aimed at people perhaps who haven't seen QPSMR Companion at all, or don't even use QPS at the moment. So for people who are brand new to it, or perhaps use QPSMR Insight and are looking to upgrade to the new Companion, and I'll set that in context shortly. But it's also aimed at existing users as well. So they can see what's new in the new QPSMR Companion. If you're a new user or you don't actually use QPSMR at this stage and you're just having a look to see what it's all about, you'll certainly get a feel for what the software does from today's webinar, but you won't see perhaps the depth of what's in the software. And I would encourage you to get in touch with Nikki, who can arrange a full demo of the system sort of from start to finish, rather than perhaps looking at tools that are in there that are new, which weren't necessarily in the previous version of QPSMR. So Nikki's email address will come up on the final slide at the end of the session. So we're going to look today at some of the reasons for switching from QPSMR Insight to QPSMR Companion as well. We're going to look at the new features that are going in there, and we're going to also have a little introduction. It is only going to be an introduction to what's going on at MRDC Software in terms of how QPSMR fits into other developments that we're carrying out, what those other developments are, and what we're working towards, because we really are making some quite big changes at the moment and some really huge developments to our software, which will unfold over the next sort of 9 months, year. So that's the sort of content of today's webinar. And just for those who don't know anything about QPSMR or very little about it, let's just put it in context in terms of what it does. I'm not going to spend too long on this, but it really has sort of 3 main modules, if you like, or 3 parts to it. And that's the part where you do data collection, the part where you handle data management, and the part where you handle tabulations. And the data collection, QPSMR, comes with just the standard version, having data collection for paper questionnaires or for offline CAPI surveys, and it has an additional module if you want to do CATI through a telephone centre where you've got operators who are dialing out, etc., to respondents. So that's the data collection side. The data management side, I always think data management is one of my things I often say in webinars that I run on different topics, actually. Data management is always underestimated by people when they come to buy software. It's the part that is very unattractive to look at. It's not much fun in there. I'm not going to show you much about it today because there's not many exciting things in there, but the completeness of the data management is absolutely important and crucial when you're using a piece of software, because it can mean the difference between your staff perhaps spending 1 minute doing something like perhaps importing some data from another piece of software like SPSS, to perhaps taking 2 days to bring that data into your platform. So I do take data management very seriously, and that includes things like importing data, cleaning data, changing data, checking data. All those sorts of things I think are quite important, and I'm not going to show you much of that today because I say it's not the most exciting parts of QPSMR, but it is a very complete system for managing your data. And we're now going to look at some of the tabulations that you can do in QPS today and how that's been improved in this upgrade to the QPSMR Companion. So that's a sort of bit of background to, if you like, where QPSMR sits. And the modules that we have, and these are overflowing into other products here, but if we go along the top line first, these are the QPSMR products. The old product is QPSMR Insight. The new product is QPSMR Companion. And just to sort of, for those who have heard of it, perhaps have known about it, there's one or two people who have known about the Companion for perhaps 2 years now. We've introduced each part of the Companion piece by piece. So the data entry went in at one point, setting up the questionnaire went in at another point. But now we're at the position where everything has been completed. All the modules in QPSMR have been converted from Insight into the Companion. And personally, I would recommend that everybody moves to the Companion if they're already an Insight user, because it does everything Insight does, plus you get a lot more. And we will, just to be upfront about this, be phasing Insight out over the next 3 years. There'll be no more developments to Insight, and in about 3 years' time, it will get retired, and you'll have to move to the Companion. So there's really no reasons not to move to the Companion. There's that short-term irritation that you've got to learn where some of the new things are, but I think, as you'll see today from today's presentation, you'll get a lot of new extra things that will save you time. So going along the top line there, the other module, which is an add-on module to the main, or the base product, if you like, of QPSMR, is the CATI and TELIN, which go together. So that's a module that for administrators or project managers has a supervisor function, so that you can manage samples from CATI surveys, you can set quotas, and you can manage and look at the performance, if you like, of your staff who are doing telephone interviews. And TELIN is the actual piece of software that the interviewers use to actually conduct those surveys with the respondents on the telephone. MR Input is another tool that comes in the QPSMR bag, if you like. That's a free tool. That's free to distribute to anybody. That allows people to enter data from questionnaires, typically on paper, but it could be used in a CAPI situation as well. And that's free to distribute. There's no limit to the number of licenses that you distribute to anybody you want to, your clients, anybody. And that's still a free module that's available. Now, we've also got Reflect, which is part of the QPSMR family, and that's the secondary analysis program that, again, is free to distribute to either research execs within your own company, perhaps, or to your clients, so that they can take a project that's already been processed in QPSMR and produce some more tables from it. So Reflect is something that's also been upgraded a little bit, that's available now in QPSMR. And separately, we have MRDCL. That's the scripting language that uses the same engine as QPSMR. So QPSMR and MRDCL actually use exactly the same engine to process surveys, which explains why they're both right at the top of the range in terms of how quickly they process tables, how many tables they can do, how the biggest sample sizes they can handle are literally millions. So it's QPSMR and MRDCL use the same engine. The difference is that MRDCL uses a scripting language and QPSMR uses a much easier to use user interface. Consequently, QPSMR is aimed at people who either perhaps are irregular users handling simpler projects, or have less trained staff who can use a scripting language, because a scripting language, as probably most of you know, does need a lot more expertise and training, and people perhaps spending 50%, if not 100% of their time using the software to get the best of it. And I'm going to add on to the list 2 new products that we're releasing over the course of 2020. Resolve is a new product that we're releasing. It comes in two sizes, as it were. It comes as a free base version, which anybody can use. So you could take a QPSMR project and handle it in Resolve. It's a bit like Reflect in that it's sort of an upgraded Reflect in that you can do a few more things than you can in Reflect. It can do a few more difficult table types. It can also go on and produce a chart for you in Excel, so that you can use that chart from those tables that you've run to perhaps put into a PowerPoint presentation. And then there's a paid version, Resolve Premium, which we haven't quite released yet, but is coming out later this year. But I put it on this slide for completeness, which will do everything that Resolve Base does, but it will also give you the power to do anything anyone can do in MRDCL by giving you add-ins that can do any type of analysis you want. So it's a sort of halfway house between QPSMR and Resolve Base and MRDs and MRDCL. It sort of lets you do anything you can imagine you would want to do in tables, including perhaps complex tables, difficult summary tables that would be difficult to do usually in a menu-driven system. It gives you access to things like that, and it achieves that by using add-ins, which we provide. I think we're going to have about 20 free add-ins that we're going to supply to people who have a Resolve Premium license, but you can actually build your own add-ins to do really complex and clever things. That will also go on to do what I call automated reporting to Office or Google products, so that you can build a presentation in PowerPoint, run some tables, and automatically refresh that with figures that you've generated using Resolve Premium. So it's going to be a really powerful time-saving tool that will mean, for example, if you've got a tracking study, you can just run the tables again. It will refresh your presentation, and you'll get a new presentation out in PowerPoint or Excel, whatever it is you're using. Similarly, if you're running a project in MRDCL, you can do that as well. So it's not just to QPSMR. This applies to QPSMR and MRDCL. So that's sort of quite exciting news that's coming up for later this year. But I thought I'd put it in this slide here just for sort of completeness. So later on, you'll see that we're saying that these two products here will gradually disappear. So QPSMR Insight will be disappearing, I think, and will be finally disappearing in about 3 years' time, and will be replaced by the Companion. And Reflect also will be disappearing, I think, to a great extent, because Resolve Base will do everything Reflect does, and you'll even be able to go further with Resolve Premium for what's actually quite a small license fee. All right, so let's just have a quick look at why people use QPSMR. And I'm not a huge QPSMR user myself. My expertise is in the scripting language, and I always like to ask people why they use QPSMR. This is our current customers, and one of the answers I always seem to get back is they like it, or we like it. And it's not something I don't think I've ever been somebody who's used QPSMR for a multiple live projects, if you like. So I find that hard to judge, because my expertise, as I say, is in MRDCL scripting. But people who use it genuinely like it. It's probably for one of the reasons that are sort of listed below here. It is very easy to use. We've had many clients who have switched from other software to QPSMR and have been quite surprised themselves, I think, that they managed to do their first project within the first or second day that they've had the software. So learning is very easy. It's very intuitive software, and people get up and running very, very quickly. And it is a good tool as well if you're just an infrequent user. People find they can go back to it, having not used it for 6 months, and work with it, very, very satisfactorily. We also think we support it well. We've added to our website something like 50 videos. I believe it's just actually slightly under 40 something videos that help you with both getting started in QPSMR and with some of the sort of more difficult, knotty problems that you might come up with day to day, and with specialist ones as well on how to handle CATI surveys and things like that. So on our website, that's freely available. There are 50 helpful videos. If you want access to those, we can supply that list or the contents of those, so that you can view those whenever you wish to. And just to be complete on that, we will be adding another, I think it's 10 or 11 this year, with some of the new things that haven't quite caught up with all the developments that have gone into the latest release. So are going to be another 10 videos coming later this year. Also, QPSMR, one thing people like is there's an upgrade path. So not if you outgrow QPSMR and you want to start getting in specialist staff who can use the productivity features of MRDCL, you can do that. And you can run QPSMR and MRDCL side by side, because if you build a project in QPSMR, you can transfer it in literally 5 seconds to MRDCL, so that somebody who's got scripting ability can perhaps do some difficult parts in it in a more productive way. And as I mentioned early on at the beginning, it's got a CATI add-in as well, which is very easy to take on. It's very logical to move on to. It doesn't need scripting. You can use the CATI module just by using menus and drop downs and so on. It's a really intuitive piece of software, which we find once people have done one project, they tend to be very comfortable with it thereafter. Just to give you a bit of background in where we're going as a company in terms of our software, there's a lot going on in MRDC software this year. One of the things that's, I think, good about the QPSMR Companion is that all our other products really have a focus on productivity. We've done a lot of work to our software to make people more productive. We've been, I would admit, slightly disappointed that sometimes clients don't appreciate that because it's not something people consider always when they buy, because they're looking for features sometimes, or being able to understand the software and those sorts of things. But I think productivity really is quite important when you've got staff using a piece of software for several man days per year. That really just important. If you can halve that or cut it even by 25%, that's money basically, and it can actually pay for your license. So this version of QPSMR, the Companion, has a focus on productivity, and you'll see that with some of the things I'm going to show you when I whip through 10 features in just a few moments' time. And I think actually productivity is something we're already getting that sort of feedback and thinking, in view of the current pandemic and the crisis in the world and how it's going to hit economies, I think productivity will actually go up the agenda in the next year, whereas it's something that perhaps people haven't considered enough perhaps in the past. And the QPSMR will feed in to our Resolve base version, which I talked about just now, so that you execs and clients can produce secondary analysis and a charts free, no cost. If you want to go a step further and do complex analysis, an automated charts in PowerPoint and Excel, you will need a premium license. But as I say, that's not highly expensive. It's really only add on a small percentage to your QPSMR license fees. And one thing that we are going to be covering in a bit more detail in a webinar, I think it's in three weeks' time. This is number 6 in our series, and number 9, which I think is the first week of June. How we sort of see market research changing and how we're linking all our data together to make it one process from questionnaire through to an online dashboard. And QPSMR will link to a new dashboard platform that we have, so that you can take data and deliver it in a dashboard with relative ease. So that's something that's new and exciting, but we're going to go through that in somewhat more detail in a webinar in 3 weeks' time. And that's really, I guess, where we're heading, in that we're seeing the movement from survey to data management and analysis and dashboarding and reporting as being something that should be a much smoother process, whereas I think too often market research companies have thought of them as all these sort of steps. They put a questionnaire out, they get some data, then they worry about the data, then they worry about some tables, then they worry about the charts. And I think it'd be much better if we had a platform that put this together as one. And that's really where we've headed basically, and where we really you'll see some huge progress from us by the end of this year. So let's get away from PowerPoint. Let's have a look at some of the features in QPSMR Companion. So I'm just going to start it up now. If I can just get out of this, and it won't let me out. That's it. So I'm just going to start up Companion, and I'm just going to take you through maybe 10 features now that are just going to show you some of the things you can do. As you go along, you'll probably get, if you're new to QPSMR, you'll get a feel for what QPSMR is about. But you will probably need a full demonstration. As I say, if you're new and haven't seen it in full before, I would commend you to get in touch with Nikki and she'll arrange a full demonstration. So one of the new things in the QPSMR Companion is some of the tools that speed up putting in your questionnaire. So, for example, one of the things that I know people have always found quite slow is typing in the responses, where they in the Insight, you have to enter each one at a time and hit return and choose the next one and the next one. And that can be quite a slow process. So copying and pasting is something that you can do now. So we could, for example, go to a Word questionnaire that I've got open here. And if I've got this on a paper questionnaire, I could literally just go and copy and paste. So I made a mess of that. Let's do it again. I can copy and paste these entries here, and I could have copied the question as well. How often do you buy Coca-Cola? And then I can go to the responses tab, which is here, click on this icon here, and I can just paste in those responses, and that is it done. So that's something that's already a lot quicker if you want to take texts, or if you're taking the text from, if you're not using QPS for data entry, you're just using it for analysis, you may have a program, you may be taking data from, I don't know, Confirm It or something. You can just drop all the text out of Confirm It and then just paste them in that really easy way. And of course, the same is true there as well. So I can, if you've got your text in Excel, so let's just do the same there. Single. What is your favorite brand? I really can't type, can I? But it does prove I'm doing it live, if nothing else. And I can go into here, and I've got an Excel workbook here open somewhere. I think I have anyway. Let's see if I've got it. Yeah, here we go. So I've got a list here, which is a pretty. So I've got 132 brands in here, rather conveniently called brand 1 to brand 132. And I can literally just paste those in there, click OK, and there are all my brands in the software. Another thing you've got in here now is an undo button. So if you did paste the wrong thing in, you have got an undo button here, which just takes it all out. And it's all gone again now. So you can easily copy and paste things if you want to by that method. But I'm going to sort of paste it back in again. There we go. And there's my 132 brands just taken from a spreadsheet automatically. The next thing that I'm going to show you is that you can also apply changes to blocks of codes and so on. And there's a lot of things that apply to blocks. So, for example, I could pick these brands here. I don't know why I've just picked brands 5 to 10, and I could pick an analysis option such as suppressive 0. Now, I know you wouldn't want to do that necessarily, but if I wanted to do that in the past, I would have had to have selected each one at a time and applied it. Whereas now I've applied an analysis option to those 6 brands just by highlighting them all at once, picking the option down here. And that's true of all the other options that are in here for applying filters to codes or anything else that you want to do to control your data. You can just highlight the responses that you want and apply them to all of those responses in one go. Let's have a look at the next thing on my list. So let's close that and save that. And let's add another question. So I'm going to call this Q3_1. How do you rate brand A? I'm going to put the responses in as very, whoops, I can't type again, very good, quite good, okay, quite poor, and very poor. Click OK and save that. Oh, I left it as a multi. I meant to make it a single. That's it. So that should make it okay. So that's that question. And now I can copy this question if I want to do brand B. So I can just click copy, click the paste special, copy it to question 3_2. Copy the responses, and I've got that. And all I need to do then is to go back in and change that to brand B. And finally, I could paste special again, change that to Q3_3, copy the responses, and just quickly change that to C. Now, I know what happens here. Suddenly you realize when you've done this that you forgot, in Insight this is, that you wanted to add a reject category, or you wanted to apply some scores to each of those. And you used to have to go through and update each one, or perhaps update the first one and just start the copy paste procedure again. Now you've got another block command available here. So I can edit all of these responses using the block responses update. And I got a selection of different things I could do. So I could insert a no answer given code. I can change the text if I want to. So I can apply that, and you can now see that I've got 6 responses here. So I've got the 5 codes I typed in, plus the additional no answer given. And I can also do things like scores in here. So I could say, well, I forgot to put the scores in, but I actually wanted to score this as 5 and go down in descending order down to 1. And I want to apply that as well. And so now all of my questions are scored 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Really good productivity game type things. And you've got some other things. I won't take you through all these things, but you can put in ranking. You could add a summary row to each of those questions, which was a top 2 box, for example, which would again have been a fairly laborious task in the past. You can just add a top 2 box and a bottom 2 box in one go to all of those questions. You've also got some tools. This is on to the next thing I'm going to show you now, which is adding a question in. Let's go for question 4. Let's make it single. Let's say, how do you rate your journey to work? Not enough of going to work by a journey at the moment, but if you'll forgive me for saying that. And you've got a new checkbox here which says values at end of lines to be used as mean scores. So this is a much quicker way to get your mean scores in now. You can just say very good 5, quite good 4, okay 3, quite poor 2, and very poor 1. You could even have a not stated there if you like and put no score on the end. And you can see it's applied that all for you. Save it. So hopefully what you're getting out of that is that you can see there's some really good shortcuts in there now to make you more productive. I've not shown you everything by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just giving you a glimpse of some of the things that will really save you time if you come to use this upgrade or you buy into a QPSMR license. All right. So let's look at a couple of things. Another new feature is a data issue I'm going to show you. There are quite a few improvements to the data management. I'm only going to show you one here. One thing that we find quite a lot is that people have data in Excel these days. This is partly because some of the data collection software that people use only can output data to CSV or Excel. And there's been a demand to get data into QPSMR from Excel. So we built a nice shortcut way of doing that now. So if I open up another project here, I could insert my questions. I'll do this very quickly. So you can see the data I've got here has got a serial number, Q1, Q2, Q3, where Q1 is a 1, 2 answer, Q2 is a 1, 2, 3, and Q3 has got some numbers in it, perhaps a score out of 100 or something like that. So let's quickly set that up at sort of top speed here. Gender, we'll call this one as it's 1 and 2. responses, male, female. Okay, and save that. And let's put another question in. Q2, oops, Q2 is important that the name is the same actually as the spreadsheet. Let's call that region and go to the responses, add those in. Let's go for North, Central and South. And finally, we'll put in an integer, which is that number that we had in for question 3. And we'll say that's an integer. Number of cans, oops, I've mistyped it. Number of cans of Coca-Cola bought. And we'll set that to a width of 3. And that's that. So I've got my questionnaire set up here. Let's save it as new test. So that's saved it. And now I can import that data because I've got the question numbers here, matching my data here. I can literally go into data, update data file, browse, go and find that file that I've just been showing you. So let's go onto my drive here. Just got to go and find it. And click OK. Open it. And sure enough, there's that data imported into QPSMR now. Only 3 records, but there's the values. You can see they've all come in. And this is in fact a new editor that's in QPSMR Companion now, so you can actually edit this data if you want to, which makes it much easier to work with. But this also means now that I can do some very quick analysis on this. You can see now that if I open up this data file, I've got 3 records in there, and if I drag gender into here, I get the counts for gender. And if I can, what did I put? Region in there, sorry. If I put gender in here, you can see there's my 3 records that I pulled in. All that data has been pulled in directly from Excel now and producing some analysis, which I can put percentages on if I want to. So some really nice new tools there to help you with data that's perhaps come out of other software, so that you can analyze that data in QPSMR. All right, I'm now going to open an existing project. Let's close these things. I'm leaving quite a lot of things open here. I'm now going to open a project I've got here. And I'm going to work on this project now. Now, another new thing that's gone into QPSMR Companion is a new tool for weighting. So this is just a questionnaire with about 15 questions or something like that. And there's now a whole new sort of wizard, I would call it, for handling weighting, whether that's target weighting or rim weighting. I haven't got time to go through this in any detail at the moment, but just to give you a feel for what you can do. So I can go into the weight data option within data, which is brand new. I can choose my data file, which is data.ask, and I can start to work on my weighting that I want to apply. So I can say I want to set, you basically work from left to right along these options here, and it does everything for you. So it's like a wizard, although you've got to go there step by step. So I can add an entry for my weighting. So I could say I want to weight my data to some figures for region, and I'm only going to do something simple here. I'm just going to weight to region. You can do age within region, age within gender within region, rim weighting, target weighting. You can do it all, but I really haven't got time to go through that, as it would just be a separate session on weighting. But let's say I want to set the target for region number 1. I could say I want 50% of my respondents to be weighted into that cell. So that's okay. I can go to region number 2. I managed to close it there. Go to the second region and set my target there to be 30%. and I could go to region 3 and set my target there to be 20%. Click OK, and it's understood that. I want to store this weight in a variable called weight. It asks you the name you want to give it. That looks fine to me. Why would I want to call it anything different to that? I can save this weighting matrix so I can use it another time. I haven't got to do that. I can just do it temporarily. And I can then go ahead and prepare checks on my data and go away and calculate the weights that are needed. And then, whoops. And it's now going away to calculate those weights. You can see it down here. And you can see what it's done now. For anybody in region 1, it's applied a weight of 1.27. The respondents here in other cells have got different weights, but what it means now is that I can also produce reports, by the way, in spreadsheets of all these weights and all these figures that I can use or send to a client or check in Excel if I feel that I want to. But then I can just save all this information down here. Just go through everything, save that weighting to the data file and go into analysis, do some analysis here, open up the data file, and you can see now I've got my 831 respondents. They're weighted back to 831. Because of the weighting, my effective sample size is 792, but I can now produce a table of question 3 by region, and my weights, my data now is weighted so that the first region is a third of the sample, and so on. And maybe we can see it a bit more clearly if I put region down here. So now we can see, let's add percentages, shall we? Now we can see I've got 50% for the weighted data. This is the unweighted column. It was 39, it's now weighted to 50. 38's become 30 and 23's become 20. And so it looks as though my weighting has worked. And you can see I've got these color markings here for significance tests as well. So quite a lot going on there. All good stuff that you can use when you want to do weighting. Much easier to use, no secret files that you need to have. You can just go through it in a step-by-step manner. All right, so now we're going to look at some table features. So I'm going to produce some tables. Now you saw me just now then doing some tables in the drill down menu. So that's a sort of drag and drop way of doing some quick tables, if you like. So if you wanted to get a quick count of gender by region, you can just do that, and you can add percentages and so on, and you get significance figures out and things like that. So that's a very quick way of doing some tables. If you're producing batches of tables, you'll use a method that's much more like the QPSMR Insight. So you'll go to build a tables file, and let's make a new one. So let's call it demo. And you would work in here, and you can build a banner. It's a little bit quicker to build a banner now than it was before, but you can build a banner. I haven't selected a table. I should have done that. Add a new table. So add a new table. We drag the banner into here, and I can pick as many questions as I want to. So I might pick 1, 2, 3. I don't know, let's pick those questions there and drag those into the rows. And I've now got 8 tables set up just like that. Just so that's not too dissimilar to what we had before. What you can do now, though, is you can apply changes to individual or blocks of tables. So using the control key, I could pick those 3 tables there, type in a format option or some other option or a filter or something like that, and for example pick DPR2, which means 2 decimal places for my mean scores. So I can just apply it to selected tables. So I can set up all my tables quickly, and then any tables I want something different on, like a filter or a format, I can just apply it separately for those tables. And we can run it here. I can run all the tables, or I can run selected tables. So I'm going to run all the tables. and switch sheets. And now what QPSMR does, it defaults by running tables out to Excel, but if you want tables in the old style TXT as well, there's a checkbox here that you can enter and save, and it will remember that now. It'll run my tables. The default will be now that it's in Excel format. And so this is what you get now, a table of contents with all your tables effectively down different worksheets. So if we want to look at table number 1, there's the table with column percentages and whole numbers. If we want to go back to the contents, we can go to table 2, and that's the one where you may remember I put 2 decimal places, so I've got 2 decimal places there. And of course you can go along to the sheets this way to look at the other tables. I think it was table 8, I can't remember which table I had 2 decimal places as well. This one here, table 9, also had 2 decimal places. Not a very interesting table, that one. So you now get your tables in Excel format. I check the box to output them in text format as well. So I have got my tables here as a text file as well. So if you prefer them in that format, I clicked on it then and I thought, but it didn't open. Oh, I've opened Excel up, have I? So I meant those tables. So there's the tables in, if you like, the old format where they come out in a text file, if that's something that you prefer for that particular project. All right, so that's sort of taking you sort of quickly around how you can do batches of tables, how you can make changes to blocks of tables, how you can flick between Excel and TXT tables. Another new feature that we've put in, which I think people will like, is, if I can get back to the project, is the ability to do banked summary tables. And so we've now got a new grid table feature. So if you click on that, and all you've got to do for a grid table feature, as long as the variables are called a name underscore 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it will understand these as a grid. So that if you just pick the first one and have just selected the grid table feature, which I did here, you'll see columns blanked out, but just drop that one into the rows there. And let's just, we'll run all the tables again. But we should get an extra table now. So we get table 10 now. And you can see very, very easily, I've got a very nice summary table out now with their mean scores and significance tests on the mean scores coming out as well. So that's something that's really quite a nice new feature in QPSMR Companion, the ability to do a summary table with, I was going to say one click, but certainly not far out from one click. You've got some other tools in here as well. You've got some more, let's just shut this down. You've got some more sort of data exploration tools so that you can do combinations of data. So you can get a summary report of all your data very quickly now. So you get the counts and the percentages. I can click on any question I like and I can just browse through and see what answers I've got for every question. Similarly, under analysis now, you've got a combinations report that you can produce. So any question that's got multis, you can see what combinations of data people are giving. So let's just open that up. So this is telling me, here's the number of records that had combination of 1, 3, and 6. And there you go. So there's sort of all the combination of data in a really nice spreadsheet format. That's a really good little quick tool. If, for example, you've got combination of brands bought or something like that that you're interested in finding out more about. All right, so I've given you a very quick tour of the new QPSMR Companion. I'm just going to give you a very quick introduction to Resolve. This is only the base version I'm giving you an introduction to here. Now I know some people have seen this, but this is the new free version that's available, and I'm just going to open up a new project here, call it new project, and open up this Resolve project, and you'll see at once that it's the same project as we were looking at just now in the companion. This is free to distribute, this version, to anybody. As I said, there's a premium version that will let you do even more than this, in the sense that it will let you do any analysis that MRDCL can do and automate chart production and report production in PowerPoint. So we create reports. So I can produce a table or tables here. So I can go to the rows. I can pick, let's pick question 3 here. I can pick question, what should we pick? Gender, region. Pick region. I can produce a table and a chart. So I'll click on both. And it's got a whole selection of different chart types that you can produce. I'll just stick with the default for now. I can run that. We'll run them unweighted. And that's given me the figures, which I think we saw just now, actually. But what it's also given me is those figures in a chart. So here they are. I should have ran some format options there to just make that look a bit neater. But we'll attempt to make it a bit neater. I've got some blank lines here. I should have used blank suppression to get rid of some of the things, and I should have probably got rid of the total column. But you can see I've very quickly got a decent looking chart. In the premium version, you'll be able to push that chart either as it is into PowerPoint, or you'll be able to feed the figures into PowerPoint so that it refreshes with the latest data, which of course is ideal if you're preparing presentations, but you haven't got all your data ready, or you're running a tracking study. So I've taken you through quite a lot there in quite a short space of time. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to see if Nikki's got any questions that have come in, and if there are any, I'll try and answer them. I probably haven't got too much time to demonstrate too much. And as I said, I think once or twice already, if you really want to know a lot more about the companion, you're new to it, please contact Nikki, and she'll be pleased to organise a proper full demo for you so that you can see the software in full. But I'm going to hand back at this point to Nikki and see whether there's any questions that have come up during the course of the section I ran there.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that, Phil. Anyway, Phil, I have a few questions here that I probably helped some people here. Now, the question is, you said that the data from QPS could be linked into an online dashboard, right? And how would that work?
Okay, well, on 2 or 3 levels, I suppose. In the simplest form, you can take the table, take the data. Let me start again. You can export the data from QPSMR as Excel data, and the dashboard platform has an import from Excel so that you can read that data in, and then you'll be able to use it in a dashboard. So that's sort of the lowest level, if you like. And I should say this dashboard is a very, very complete data management system, in the sense that you can pull in data from not only one survey, but from more than one survey. You can also pull in sales data, targets that people have, produce really a very, very complete dashboarding system for managing both market research and non-market research data and putting it side by side. So one method is just to output your data to Excel, and then you can just import that into the dashboard, and away you go. In the next 2 months, there's a new feature going into the dashboard that will just bring it straight through from SSS or SPSS. So that will make it even perhaps easier to pull it through. You can just export to SSS or SPSS. But the next step after that, which is a really exciting one, is that you'll be able to use what's called an API, which is basically a way of linking bits of software together. You may have seen that in other software that you use, that you can tie different software products together. There'll be an API in the platform that will mean that you can move data directly through from MRDCL, which QPSMR links into or is compatible with, straight through to the CYS platform, so that you can update dashboards in real time. So you could be collecting survey data and updating dashboards in real time, or obviously on demand, or periodically, whatever you want to do. But there's a whole suite of tools in there to do that. So the CYS platform has a lot in there to be able to manage whatever data you want to throw at it. For those who want to see that, I'm running a webinar in 3 weeks' time. That must be the first Wednesday in June. I can't remember the exact date. Where we'll be looking at that in a bit more detail, because it really will truly revolutionise how we can handle market research and how you can sell market research as well. But I think that's probably all I'll answer on that one just for now.
Okay, great. All right, that's probably good. Now, I have also here, can you explain how QPSMR and MRDCL are compatible in that way?
Yes, okay. I mean, there's actually a good blog article on this that explains their compatibility. And if whoever wrote that question wants to get in contact with us, we can point you at some blog articles that talk about the upgrade path from QPSMR to QPSMR to MRDCL. Basically, what's going on behind the scenes is that when you run QPSMR, so when I was selecting those tables as I was in QPSMR just now, what QPSMR is doing is converting that without you seeing it to MRDCL script, running MRDCL and coming back to you and saying, here's the figures in the tables. So QPSMR and MRDCL are 100% compatible, because effectively the same engine is doing everything. As a QPSMR user, you're not seeing what it's doing behind the scenes, but somebody who used MRDCL would recognize the script that it's actually generating, and it's just running it for you and coming back with the results. So the upgrade path to convert a project, I suppose there's two questions. To convert a project from QPSMR and MRDCL literally just takes 2 seconds. It's there. You can save it as an STP file that you can open in MRDCL, so it's just ready. The upgrade path as far as a user is a different issue, in that there's a lot more skill needed and a lot more training, whereas QPSMR is highly intuitive. MRDCL, there is a lot more learning. The benefits of MRDCL are that you can be highly productive and set up systems for automating things, such as tracking studies. But again, that's another topic. But if you're interested in going from QPSMR to MRDCL, please contact us and we can point you at some really good material we have, and blog articles that describe the process and what the learning curve is and what you should expect. We try to make those as honest as possible and hopefully as helpful as possible.
Okay, great. And one last question I have here is, does the grid table feature mean you can filter a grid table as well?
Yes, I did a grid table there, but I didn't put a filter on. I could have shown that, but yes, the filters are available as just the same way. So I produced a summary table, I think, of Q12. I can't remember what question it was now. Q12_1 to Q12_7 or something like that. I could have applied a filter to that, so only males went into that summary table, and you'd have got a filtered grid table then as well. So yes.
Okay, that's all the question we have here now, Phil. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining me today, or joining Nikki and I today. As you can see, Nikki's email address is on the bottom left of the screen at the moment. So if you want to find out more about QPSMR Companion, whether it's upgrading, learning how to use it, finding out where the videos are, or you're completely new and you actually want to see a bit more depth to find out what it really does and how it really handles data or whatever it is you want to know about, please get in contact with her. She'll be delighted to set up a presentation for you. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we've got a really interesting webinar on social listening, which is a quite different topic to this, but do try and encourage your colleagues, if it's not of interest to you, to come along next week, and I'll hope to see you next week. Thank you and goodbye.